Hello everyone, my name is Rúbio and I will start my oral presentation at the SCAR International Online Conference of the study entitled Brazilian Individuals Traveling to Antarctica on board a ship present changes in the thyroid hormones concentration, body fat, and mood state. This study was conducted by the Mediantar Group in partnership with this other institution down here and the founding agents. Introduction. Displacement to Antarctica and some researches usually happen on board ships, which represent an isolated and confined environment with artificial luminosity. Because this, it may cause physical, cognitive, emotional deterioration. And despite the summer light in the Antarctica, summer outside, on the ship the opposite happens with the exposure to low luminosity, and it's known that low luminosity modulates endorphin and mood responses. Thus, it is known that exposure to low luminosity may influence the secretion of thyroid hormones, which affect mood state. In addition to that, confinement and isolation are associated with sedentary behavior, thereby impacting in mood states. However, there is still no clarity on these effects on ships. So the aim of this study was to assess whether traveling on board a polar ship changed thyroid hormones like TSH and T4 concentration and individuals' anthropometric characteristics, which can lead to important metabolic and mood changes. Material and methods. This study respects all the rules of the Brazilian National Council according to this resolution, and it was approved by institutional committees, ethics committees. In addition, all volunteers signed the informed consent form. 17 researchers participated in this study, all tropical inhabitants, and it was recommended they should abstain from alcohol 24 hours before the measures and try to reproduce the semi-fast period, activities schedule, and sleep. Regarding the time of the experiment, ship departure from Punta Arenas on November 2018 on 5th day, and at 5 days, the initial measurements were made with the first group of researchers that count 3 volunteers. 2 weeks later, the ship backs to Punta Arenas for replacing supplies and boarding another group of researchers. And after that is another group departure from Punta Arenas, day 26. And 4 days after the experiment begins for this second group of researchers. 2 weeks later, the experiment ends for both groups, the first and the second, and we saw that as statistical analysis showed very similar results between these groups, the data from these groups were grouped, so the results will be present together. In experimental design, the first day was used for blood measurements. With a lancet, it was made a hole in the point finger of the volunteer, and 5 drops of blood were collected on the paper filter for the future analysis of TSH and T4, and more one of blood for glucose, blood glucose. On the first and second day, the anthropometric measures were taken together with the mood questionnaire that contains 24 items, which the answer varies from 0 equal nothing to 4 extremely. The 24 items comprises 6 dimensions: anger, confusion, depression, fatigue, tension, and vigor. And at the end, the same measurements were repeated in the same order. Results and discussion. About the subjects, Table 1 shows the characteristics of the sample with an average age of 25 years old. For anthropometric measurements, no difference was found in body mass, but a higher percentage of body fat. There was no statistical difference for the body mass index, as well as for the blood glucose. Figure 1 shows the results of TSH and T4. TSH and T4 at the initial white bar and at the final measures black bar. On the left side, we have the response of TSH, which was not different between the measurements. In the right side, we have the results of T4, which showed a reduction in the final measure. About the results, there is still evidence that days of total darkness in the Antarctica winter with reduced exposure to natural luminosity may cause a syndrome called polar syndrome that's characterized by an increased TSH and reduction in T4. Our data partially corroborate with this picture due to the reduction of T4 in T4, and one possible explanation is that the exposure to bright light influences the deiodinase enzyme activity, which converts T4 to T3, reducing so the values of this T4 hormone. Figure 2 shows us the results of mood questionnaire with the same graphic representation as before, in which only the dimensions that obtain a statistical difference are presented. In this case, there was an increase in anger, depression, and a decreased vigor. So, it looks like that reduced exposure to luminosity, including natural sunlight, reduces T4. Also, the humor deterioration may be related to psychological changes over a period of confinement and isolation that augments tension and interpersonal conflict, and the increased body fat, possibly due to changes in eat and exercise habits. So here we have a picture that altogether contributes to a mood deterioration. However, the conclusion of this study is that in the context of Antarctica expedition, short-term ship travels reduce blood T4 concentration and provoke negative mood changes in tropical inhabitants, possibly due to reduced exposure to natural luminosity. Also, the changes in eating and exercise habits likely contributed to increased sedentary behavior, which favors an increase in body fat. Here we have the partners of the study, and I would like to highlight the coordination of Professor Rosa Arantes and the sub-coordination of Professor Michele Moraes. The authors thank the military personnel involved in the Brazilian operanta for logistical support, very especially the authors that the volunteers who, during the hard work, participated with dedication in this study. Here we have our contacts in the social medias. And I would like to thank you for your attention and the foundations that we have here. On the right, I have my personal contact. Thank you very much.